Okay, so before I go any further, does anybody have any questions on anything I've covered that I can take orally and repeat for the camera? None. All right. So either you're getting it, or you don't care. Yes, sir.
On the example of the borrowing 60,000 then I pay back. Yeah, 40,000. When do I pay back the loan?
You pay back. The question is, if I borrow the private loan, when do I pay back the private loan? The answer is when your buyer cashes you out with new financing. That's why you do not want to borrow this private loan and put yourself under a one-year balloon, which is kind of common in our business for people who are buying and rehabbing. That's why I want Reese to give me several years before the loan is due, because he's making a high rate of return. There's no reason for him to want it back quickly anyway. And the truth is, even if he did, I could always sell his note to somebody else at face value if it's a high rate of return. I'm not going to get into that discussion here. So I want plenty of time before that loan is due. Then I got plenty of time to get my buyer qualified, or my next buyer qualified. Got it? And even if his loan comes due, class, and we don't have a buyer qualified, what happens? Well, don't worry. You always have suicide. Right. What do? Hey, Reese, I haven't got this thing cashed out yet. Is it okay if we renew it for another couple of years? Yeah. By the way, it might be time to maybe throw some interest at him at that point. Maybe catch up a little bit. Yeah, because it's been accruing, right? Okay, got it. Any other questions? All right. Oh, got one right here. Yes, ma'am. I'll come to you. I'm selling to an investor and I'm having an investor pay the repair cost. Yes? What percentage of the profit do I recommend is not a question I can answer because it has so many things it depends on. Like that's actually in here. How many repairs? Is it a great monstrous repair? If it is, we're going to give them a lot more equity. A smaller job, a little less equity. But the truth is, it's a negotiation in this case between you and them. You set what you think is fair. If they agree, fine. If they don't agree, you decide if what we can agree upon is good enough for you. The truth is, you've got no money in this thing. You brought money out of it. And maybe we ought to just move these things through the system, not try to squeeze every single drop out of them, and let other people make some money while we make some money, which is a good philosophy to have about business. Let other people make good money, and I promise you, they're more apt to help you make good money. Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. Did I have a question over here?
Yeah.
I could answer it better if I had a good cup of coffee up here, but since I don't have one, I'll try. Go right ahead. I can answer it better if I had a good cup of coffee, but since I don't have one, I'll do my best. Yes, sir.
Is there a form of division for rent charge for?
How do we set the rent? Is the question. The answer is swag. That's a scientific wild-ass guess. But it's going to be below, probably well below what it would be if the house was in excellent condition. So you're just going to figure out what your market rent is with a little bit of research and charge less, that's all. In fact, you ought to charge. This is one of your best selling tools. Now that you brought it up. Thank you, ma'am. I'm sure. $20 cup of coffee, she said. It's really a good selling tool if you can make the rent really cheap, especially to investors now. Because remember, they're not living in the house. But you just tell them, look, guys, I got expenses on this house. I got taxes, I got insurance, I'm paying this while you're fucking around with it. You're not just going to turn it over you and hope you're going to perform. So I need rent. And so you should figure out what your taxes and insurance are and your accruing interest. You are paying a monthly payment. You're just not writing a check. You understand that, don't you? Okay. So if I'm paying $7,000 a year, I'm going to divide that by 12. That's going to be $600 a month right there. So I'm going to probably collect $600 a month plus taxes and insurance. If I can, I'm willing to take a little negative there because I'm not actually writing a check for that negative, but I'm going to put them on a short fuse. So if I put them on a 6 month short fuse and they haven't performed, I don't have a big risk. Besides, you're going to put somebody in the deal to begin with if you don't think they can perform. No. However, if you're going to sell to investors, should you assume they're not going to be able to sell the property to a qualified buyer and you have to take it back? Yes, you should. Now, what if you have your buyer's machine set up? Oh, no, okay, look, I'll go give you 10% of the deal. You go do the rehabs, take all the worry off my back, take care of the house, maintain the house, do all that crap. I'll give you 10% of the net, and I'll throw some buyers at you, and you go take them, get them done, get all that work done as well, right? Well, the truth is, if you get to that point, you might as well just hire a contractor and plug in your own salesperson, and you're in total control. Which is a whole other seminar. Putting your own salesperson in place is actually part of my green pretty house cash flow system. This is the part that bothers everybody out there in the marketplace today. That's how I determine the real market value. I don't know what the R is. What's R stand for? After fair value, correct. And believe me, it's a reasonable concern. Because what happens, you pull up a list of sales in any given neighborhood out there today, and you got some of them at the top end that were sold to arm's length qualified buyers who went down and got loans and bought them in good condition. And then you got some that were sold as bank REOs that weren't in good condition at a deeply discounted foreclosure price. Same neighborhood, same size house. So the trick is to figure out, well, gosh, what's this house really worth? Well, first you got to ask yourself, what value are you looking to achieve? And that is the R, after repaired value, to an arm's length qualified buyer. And that's the number you have to arrive at to do business out there today. I didn't say you had to sell it for that price. I said, what's the after repaired value based on the comps to arm's length buyers in excellent condition in this neighborhood? Those are the only ones I'm interested in. We have to ignore all those bank-owned properties, or you're never going to get a real R. Because if you add those bank-owned properties in there, your value just went, there's no way you can put a number on this house. So, I know it's difficult, because sometimes you take a look, and you look at the list, and you see, these numbers are all over the place, but here's what I do. It's really this simple. I'll take that big old list, and I'm looking for the top 3 or 4 sales on the list. In fact, I think that's let's do it in order here so I don't get all over the place. Let me see. Yep. That's exactly what I'm covering here. All right. Let me back up a little. Here's a big mistake I see investors making. My own home buyer society continually makes this. I have to continually pound them against this. We go out and we pull our comps, and there's a whole list of websites to do that. And we pull our comps, okay? And then we decide, we take even the higher ones, and we put a number on this property based on analyzing our comps, and then we lower that because we're conservative and scared. Now, please keep in mind that if you lower your ARV, that means you're lowering your offer and probably pricing yourself right out of the market. If you use my system, your conservativeness is already built into the process of determining what you're going to offer, but you have to start with a proper ARV. So if you lower the ARV and you increase the repairs, and then you get conservative on top of that, next thing you know, you're making stupid offers and wondering why none of them are getting accepted. It's because you're using bad math. The ARV is not necessarily what you expect to sell the house at. In this market, if you're retailing them for cash, you should assume you're going to take a hit on the ARB. However, the ARB is what I've got evidence that a similar house sold for in that same neighborhood to an arm's length buyer. And I'm going to work like hell to get that ARB up there to where those are. But I'm not going to start with a quick sale ARB or conservative ARB. Everybody follow me so far?
Yeah.
Sure. Hello?
Yes.
All right. The formula for determining the sales price, let's start with that and go down it because this is kind of important. But it all starts with the ARB, so I had to, and we're not through with that yet, I'm going to come back to it. We start with the ARB as soon as we figure out how to do that. But then we take a look at the product that we're dealing with. Is the product in a nice sellable neighborhood? Is the market reasonably decent in this neighborhood? Or is it in a really low-class trailer trash neighborhood that I'm going to have a hard time moving, or a semi-war zone that's going to be a problem area? That's one consideration. Two consideration, does the house have any class? Or does it look like that thing I showed you that's a little old square box with nothing going for it whatsoever? And no matter what I do to it, it's going to be more difficult to sell because it just has no shape to it. Y'all understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
I mean, can you just look at some houses and they just look sexier than other houses? Yes? Okay. If it's an unsexy house, then I'm probably going to set my sales price less than if it's a sexy house, whether it be to an investor or to an owner-occupant. I mean, less meaning less a percentage of the ARB. If it needs a lot of work, I'm going to have to give away more equity as a percentage than if it needs a little bit of work. If somebody's got to come in and renovate a house that I have to spend $25,000 to fix, that's a lot of work. And you're not going to get a work for equity tenant buyer to come in here and do that for just $25,000 worth of equity, most likely. On the other hand, if it needs $25,000 worth of work, are not getting it for a much lower percentage of the ARB because it needs so much work. The answer better be yes. So if I can buy it really cheap, then I can sell it really cheap, still leave plenty of room for the buyer, and get them excited about getting it, even if it's a massive amount of work. I also know that the more work it needs, the harder it's going to be to find a qualified tenant buyer that is capable of getting the work done. Doesn't mean I won't buy it. But it does mean I have to apply common sense. Now, let's take up average house, average neighborhood, decent sellability, decent looking house, needs some work. Let's say it needs $6,000, $7,000 worth of work if I were to hire it done. Well, let's say it needs 10 because it's a nice round number. If it needs $10,000 worth of work and it's got everything going for it, I'm going to sell it for 90% of its after repair value. I'm just going to determine the price that easily. If it's worth 150, I'm going to sell it for 135. Even if it needs 15, well, if it needs 15, that's really pushing it. But if it needs worth 150, I'm going to get 135, 140 out of it if it needs $10,000 or less worth of work. On the other hand, if that same house has got issues, then I want to be able to lower that considerably. I'm going to lower it to what my gut tells me I think I can sell it for. Got it? By the way, if I'm asking too much, can I always lower it to all of the people that have shown interest? Okay. If I'm asking too little, will it cost me a lot of sleep when I find out I should have charged more? So which of those two is worse? Neither one of them are bad. Condemned houses. Look at page 19. Yes, dear, we can do condemned houses. Now, can I buy condemned houses just a little bit cheaper than uncondemned houses? In fact, can I steal condemned houses? And is every city loaded with condemned houses except Canada? Is every city loaded with condemned houses? They got these beautiful orange signs on them, don't they? Orange is my favorite color, especially when it's posted up on the door of a house. Because the minute that condemned sign goes on that house, that value plummets. It plummets in the eye of the seller and it plummets in the eye of the buyer. And it plummets in my eye too. The value plummets, but my desire to buy it increases. Why? Because I smell blood. I can steal those houses when they're condemned. And guys, where most of you live out there, you show me a $100,000 house out there right now that is condemned, and $10,000 is a pretty hefty sale price to buy it for. You buy these things all day long, cheap, 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 if they're condemned. So maybe there's a case to be made for looking for condemned houses, perhaps, and literally targeting them in decent neighborhoods. Now, a condemned house in an area where you fear for your life is not much value to you on a work for equity program. Just remember now, if an owner-occupant doesn't want to live there for fear of their life, work for equity won't work. So you don't want to do the condemns in the war zone. You can, but your exit is to wholesale those, not work for equity. In the areas where people can qualify for a loan want to live, condemned houses are great because you can not only buy them cheap, you can offer them so cheap. And I've done them to investors and owner-occupants. Because some owner-occupants realize that condemn is no big deal once you explain it to them. All that means is it's got a sign on it, and it's got to be inspected by the city before it's occupied. The city's not going to ask you to do anything we're not going to do anyway before it's occupied. So it's not a big deal. But it sure seems like a big deal, doesn't it? Oh my God, the city has condemned it. It probably should be bulldozed. You will be shocked at how good of condition some of these condemned houses are in. Especially if they're boarded up. Because if they're boarded up, the vandals can't get inside to destroy them. Yep. And when you buy them, look at all that free plywood you get. I love condemned houses. Now, they usually come with liens and taxes too, don't they? But who winds up paying the liens and taxes? The seller, out of the cash price you pay them for the house. And I love bank-owned condemned houses too. I love them because even if the bank has to come out of pocket to pay that house to sell it, they do it. They can do it. And they have no emotional attachment whatsoever to the property. And they have to get rid of them, and it's a huge liability to them. So they'll blast these condemned houses out here really cheap prices. Prices blow you away, actually. Because nobody else wants them. Because they don't know what to do with them. I love them. Okay, determine market value. If you look at the bottom of page 20, you see a bunch of websites. If you do not have a place to go pull comps right now, you need to get that fixed because you're not going to be in this business until you are able to pull comps. You have to pull comps. Now, the internet's loaded with places to pull them. And there's a few places right there on page 20 you can get them. To be honest with you, you're not going to pester a realtor every time you need comps. They're going to whack you pretty soon. If you are a realtor, not a problem. You have access to the MLS system. You are going to subscribe to a database that pulls comps. Might as well get over it. And just so you know, you can get websites that'll pull them for you for free, but you're usually getting what you're paying for. If you're getting free information, you got to tread carefully now. And some of them are okay, I know, because we've used some free websites to pull information. I'll tell you what I hate is Zillow. Zillow, I would not use Zillow if I were you. I put it in here, but you can't trust those comps. I prefer you go pay a little bit of money and tap into a reliable service that constantly updates the comps in your area and gives you good current information. One of those is RealtyTrack. RealQuest.com is one of those. Realty Track. I don't see on here. And you Canadians should have a whole list of them for Canada as well. I've sent them to you. If you're tuning into this, you're probably one of my Canadian boot camp grads and you should have them. Or already conquered that. So, gotta be able to pull comps. Now, let's analyze what a comp is real quick. This comes right out of my red wholesale cash flow system. And before I forget it, guys, if you do not have my current cash flow systems, you do not have my cash flow systems. Because some of that old, if you have the red, the blue, and the green course, I want you to go home, destroy them, put them in the dumpster immediately. They're obsolete, they are worthless, and literally detrimental to what we're doing today. Those things were taped in 1995. They're no longer. Consider it Windows 2.0. What's Windows up to now? 7? This Windows 2.0. Get it out, because it's all old junk, and some of it truly is detrimental. Today, you get my updated version. And if you want my updated complete system, it's only $495. You can get that while you're here. Same on camera. If you're watching and you have the old ones, get the new ones. Get rid of the old ones. And do not put them on eBay. Do not take outdated, dangerous material and sell it to somebody else. It's like selling a loaded gun to a kid. Get rid of it, trash it, throw it away. All right. There are 3 major things that you have to have in a comp. Recent sale, close in proximity, and close in square footage. A recent sale is important today because you can't use 2008 comps for a current comparable. If you do, you're using bogus, erroneous information. And in fact, I don't want that comp to be more than 6 months old, and I prefer it to be way newer than that. However, you got to deal with whatever you can find, and you may not have any newer than that. Usually you do. We find it not difficult at all to get recent sales within the last 2, 3, 4 months or so on arm's length transactions sold to owner occupants, and we can tell that by the price they were sold for. It doesn't say, when you print out these comps, it doesn't say arm's length transaction to qualified buyer. It prints out the property address, the date it was sold, the price it was sold for, and in some areas the square footage that it was sold, that the house was. You just have to take the top 4 or 5 that are reasonably close together and assume they're reasonable comps for arm's length transactions because they're the highest of the whole batch, and discard all the other junk. And in fact, on page 21, I use an example. There are 3 very close comps. One of them came in at 143, 139, and 145. Okay, what's my R? Who says